without further ado, I don't want to take the stage away from these folks because they are excited to talk to you about these various programs. So I'm going to hand it over to Jan, Steph, and Frank. If you want to start, welcome everybody, ask lots of questions, and let's learn. Here we go.
So RC, computer, electrical, electronic programs are for people that are interested in learning everything about networking, computers, electronics. So if you find yourself as someone that are interested in hardware, if you're interested in taking things apart and figuring how things work, then these programs are going to be ones that might interest you. Frank, feel free to jump in at any time. So we've got our three programs, computer, electrical, and electronics. The computer is a 2-year program. The electrical is a 2 or 3-year program. The 3-year program is called a technology. The 2-year program is a technician. And all 3-year programs have co-op as an option. And then they all come in January or in September. So we have 2 intakes.
Okay, I got my mute fixed, Steph. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So where do we fit into the education circle? So you can go all the way from, there is no order here. There is no hierarchy, because if you spoke to your guidance counselor in high school, you know, some people say maybe you should go into trades, but there is no hierarchy. Everybody has their place in this circle. Everybody has their function. So what Niagara College offers are the hands-on parts of that circle. That could be the techniques programs, which lead you to trades, specific trades programs, technician level programs, and technologist level programs. So that's where we fit into this circle. And we do have some students who take their education and then move on to try to augment that by getting a degree, either in engineering or another program. But this is where we fit in the hands-on part of it. Technologists, technicians, direct trade schools, and our techniques programs. So next slide. And you should know that our computer, our electrical, and our electronics program do have a common first year. So if you decide during that first year, you are exposed to networking, you're exposed to computer concepts, you're exposed to electronics, you're exposed to the electrical part of it. So you may decide during that first year that you want to switch from one to another. And you're free to do that until the end of term 2. You are free to switch programs without any academic penalty or having to catch up on another course or anything like that. So we do offer that flexibility in the first year. What happens now is we have our year 1, which is common for computer, electrical, and electronics. Year 2 is where you branch off into your field, which is either the computer engineering technician or electrical engineering technologist or technician, or electronics engineering technologist or technician. If you leave after year 2, you will graduate as a technician. Okay, you'll graduate as a technician. If you decide, well, if you leave after year 3, we don't have a year 3 for the computer engineering technician programs, but for electrical and electronics, we do have a year 3, which is also a co-op program. So you have 12 months worth of co-op experience, being an 8-month term after your 4th term of school. We have an 8-month co-op term. And then after your 5th term of school, we have a 4-month co-op term. So if you decide after graduating as a technician that you want to come back and work towards your advanced technology diploma, then you would be able to jump back in the program if you do it within the prescribed period of time. So after so much time elapses, you're stuck where you are. So you need to, I think it's 5 years that you can come back and do that. And that is also under the assumption that the program has not changed. So you can leave after 2 years to graduate as technician, or you can leave after year 3 to graduate as a technologist. And that technology diploma can move you towards a university degree.
Just to interrupt here, Frank, Steph, would this be a good time to address the question in the Q&A that you'd like to speak to live?
That's Christy's question, correct?
That's correct.
I'm looking for a diploma program that can be used as an entry to an apprenticeship to become an electrician. So we do have electrical and we have some electronic engineering technician graduates who have pursued an apprenticeship afterwards. And what I tell the students, and Steph and Janet can jump in here, and John as well, if you are an electrical electronics engineering technician, follow that up with your Red Seal certification as an electrician, you become pretty valuable. You will have a set of skills that can move you into some higher level industrial jobs. It can move you into, if you are working for a private contractor, they can now branch into more controls work, some automation. So you bring that extra set of skills to the workplace. You can go directly and start an apprenticeship if you can find one and become an electrician straight out. But we do have technician and technologist diploma graduates pursuing an apprenticeship afterwards. Steph? Janet?
No, you're right on. I would just add, we have an electrical techniques program, which is 1 year. And it's basically similar as the first year electrician program. And I tell a lot of students that's the ideal program if you want to become an electrician. If you want to become an electrician more into controls and automation, like Frank said, I would highly recommend taking our electrical or electronic technician program because you'll learn about PLCs and control systems.
As well, Steph, they can also qualify if they challenge it. They can qualify to be exempt from some of the trade schools that a normal apprentice would take.
So lots of options. That's great. Jan, go ahead.
I was going to say, for that exemption that Frank's talking about, quite often you're just expected to get a referral from your employer and then pass the first level exam to get you out of taking your first level apprenticeship.
Wow. Okay.
And it does happen. Like my son challenged the year 1 and year 2 apprenticeship exams for carpentry. So those challenges do happen. They're not out of the ordinary. And they're expected. So Christy, I'm not sure if we fully answered your question. Was there anything more you were looking for?
Oh, no, that's great. Awesome.
Nice.
Perfect. All right. Okay, we'll carry on then. Well done, everybody. Thanks, Christy. Keep them coming.
So Steph, you're in?
Yep, got it. So we've got specialized labs at Niagara College. This is an example where you can see we've got a PLC in the bottom left in our automation lab. The top picture is a safety monitoring relay we do in robotics, and the bottom right is our computer lab where we do some networking. So year 1, year 2 labs are in the Lundy wing, and you'll spend a lot of time wiring circuits. So that's both electrical, electronics, and computer programs. Learn the fundamentals about electrical and electronics. Our labs are fully featured with power supplies, function generators, oscilloscopes, and computers. So you'll learn everything from digital to electrical, electronic principles. Next slide. In year 1, we also introduce students to fabrication. So you'll learn about how to assemble circuits, how to test circuits, and basically the fabrication skill sets and what exists in industry. Our fabrication lab, we've got really fancy stuff from soldering stations to, we've got microscopes, and in the fancier upper level manufacturing, we get into laser cutting and PCB stencil creation. We're very fortunate at Niagara College. We have a radio and telecommunications lab. So here we've got very specialized equipment to look at RF signals, antennas. We look at networking systems, and we can actually test antennas in an anechoic chamber. That's the room with all the foam on the right. So students actually design their own antennas and then they test them to see how well they perform. In our electrical power systems lab, we're fortunate. We've got all kinds of really cool stuff from electrical motors to regenerative technologies. We also have on the top left is some newer electronic materials. So we can actually simulate a hydro plant at several kilowatts. And as you can see, it's connected to the computer. So we're actually the computer simulating while connecting to the real thing, and we're generating power back to the grid. It's actually a very hands-on and valuable experience that we do in our electrical labs. We are also fortunate to have a robotics automation lab. So in the lab, and if you watch the picture on the bottom left, we've got 7 robots. This lab also has our advanced PLC, they're programmable logic controllers. That's what controls everything in industry. The electrical and electronic students in technology in their final year work with these robots to learn how to basically automate and basically learn how robotics actually functions. They do the mathematics in matrix form, and then they do all their programming for an automation sequence.
So at Niagara College, we have an IEEE student club. The IEEE stands for the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. So we have a student branch at the college, and that student branch provides opportunities to take on leadership roles at the student branch level. It allows you to connect with members of the Hamilton section, which we are part of, and even at the national level, so across Canada, to other students and to industry professionals. Once we're back on campus, we're going to be able to participate in our workshops and guest speaker sessions. The other thing that's great about our programs is you get an opportunity to do a lot of projects in the area of your interest. And our programs offer many student project opportunities. For example, we have an industrial power layout design project on the one side here, and on the other side of the right-hand side, we have the Internet of Things project. So lots of opportunities like this to be able to complete student projects. Really get in there and hands-on. So we also, as Frank already mentioned, we do have a co-op work term, and that co-op work term, students that are registered in our technology co-op programs, they'll gain practical industry experience and really make important connections, industry connections. Now, a personal story there, I am actually a proud NC grad, and I got my first job from my co-op. So before I left my co-op placement, I had a full-time job waiting for me when I finished my final term. And I can tell you that that was a great feeling. So I made a lot of really important connections through doing that co-op. We also do have pathways. If it was mentioned about furthering your education, moving on after your diploma, whether you want to do that, right after you graduate from NC, or whether that's something you want to pick up a few years down the road, once you realize that in your career that it would be beneficial to advance your education. We do have pathways into Lakehead, McMaster, and what that means is that some of your credits that you achieved at Niagara College will actually be applied to their programs, and it will shorten the amount of time that it'll take for you to finish one of their programs in an engineering discipline. So the next few slides have quite an extensive list of job opportunities, and I am most definitely not going to read them all to you. But our programs do lead to jobs, and I think that's something that you all want to hear. And the next few slides, we've just got a few lists. I'll let you read what's on there. But for our computer grads will really become valuable team members providing technical support. So either as part of an internal business support team, or even as part of a customer-facing technical support. This is where you would find real value added when you're hired into these companies, and they're very, very high demand. Now you're going to notice here we've got technician and technologist broken out on the next two slides. And yes, you are going to see there are some differences in what you can expect in your entry-level positions when you leave the college between the technician and technologist programs. However, when you leave NC as a grad, you're not going to be finished your learning journey by any means. You're going to do more learning at your employer. You might decide to do one of those pathways we mentioned. So really where you end up, your long-term career map, that's in your hands, right? You can keep going as far as you want to go. So the entry levels are listed here. And then let's take a look at that next slide. Because here we have some of those graduate success stories, the where are they now? Take a look at some of these jobs that these people have gotten after graduation from our programs, and you'll see that these are some pretty cool jobs. So I really, really look forward to welcoming you to NC into one of our computer electrical electronic programs. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much, team. Really appreciate it. Brian, we're going to keep the vibes rolling with you, and I'll pass it off to you, and we'll get learning about the Renewable Energies Technician Program.
Great, thanks, Allison, and thanks also Steph, Jan, and Frank for chatting about the CEE programs. One thing that I can mention, and I'll mirror a little bit of what Jan said, is that I too am also an agri-college, proud agri-college graduate. I studied in the electrical engineering technology program, and I can also say that my first job post-graduation was a direct result of my co-op work experience as part of that program. And so I've sort of come full circle, and I'm now back with the college. I've been with the college for over 10 years. And I'm happy to say that I'm, so thoroughly enjoying the pathway that my education through Niagara College gave me. Okay, so I'm happy to tell you that I'm the coordinator for the Renewable Energies Technician Program, and I've been involved with this program since just about the very first year that we offered it at Niagara College. I can tell you that it's a 2-year diploma program, so you'll graduate as a Renewable Energies Technician. And we do offer a fall and a winter intake. So you could start the program in either September or in January. If you start the program in January of, for instance, 2022, you will graduate at the same time as students who started the program in September of 2021. So we do go for the January intake. We do study over the summer months in 22, and then you'll join the cohort that started in September. So it does offer an accelerated pathway to graduation without having to wait the extra 8 months to start the program again in September. We'll move ahead to the next slide, Alison. Thank you. So you'll notice that there are some similarities in the lab photos. In fact, I'm proud to brag that some of the lab photos, when we looked through the CEE cluster, we were actually seeing renewable energies technician students working in the electrical electronics lab space, and similarly here. So the analogy that I typically use when I'm describing the renewable energies program is, since we have 2 years of program study, the analogy I typically use is very similar to that which you would use when you're building a house. So if you want to build a house, the very first thing that you'll do, of course, after getting permits, is dig a hole and pour a foundation. And in the entire first year of the Renewable Energies program, we do focus heavily on foundational content. And so there are a number of crossover learning opportunities between the computer electrical engineering and electronics engineering programs as the renewable, because as we'll talk about a little bit later, many of the career opportunities in the green field, in the renewable field, are indeed revolving around power generation and using electricity, from alternate power sources such as wind and solar, et cetera. So in order to really get into the 3rd and 4th semester deep dive into the renewable energies technologies, we do have to have a foundation put in place. And so there is quite a bit of electrical and electronic study as part of the program. We'll move ahead to the next slide, Allison. And in the second year, we branch out and we specialize. We focus more heavily on the core renewable technologies, such as wind and solar and geothermal. Okay, so this is some of our second year lab space, and you can see students working on a number of our different pieces of equipment. They're interactive trainers, they are live trainers. They, as far as the HMI, so the human machine interface software that exists in some of these trainers, as far as it is concerned, it thinks it's connected to a real piece of real world technology, such as a utility scale wind turbine, and in fact would be able to actually control a complete utility scale turbine. Instead, we have lab trainers where we're able to simulate and control as many variables as possible so that students can learn about all of the different operating functions of most of those pieces of tech. We'll move ahead. So I wish I could give you a complete picture of everything we talk about in the Renewable Energies program, everything you'll learn. Instead, I'm going to give you a quick snapshot. One of the most common things that I hear from students typically in their second year of studies, and then of course, as graduation date gets closer and closer, is, "Sir, I did not know that this job opportunity existed within this field." Because, and typically I want you to just sort of roll in your mind right now. If you just close your eyes and think about renewable energies technology, presumably you're likely thinking of wind turbines or solar panels. And the reality is that the green field, the renewable field, is much more diverse than that. So in many cases, if you're considering the idea of implementing a renewable technology, for instance, rooftop solar, and you've got a commercial application or a residential application, in many cases, the very first step that you take is not to call up that solar installer, but rather to call up an energy auditing firm to be able to get a report on where am I using energy? How am I using energy? And so the ability to identify, report, consolidate, energy use data is the very first step. So the idea is that if we can reduce demand at the customer side before we look at implementing green tech, we can make a more cost-effective solution for the client. Some of the real world application tools that you'll learn on, we have some actual rooftops that we've built, simulated rooftops, in the sense that they're a truss structure system that are installed at ground level. Students will learn how to physically install solar PV systems on actual rooftops. We have a number of industry relevant trainers in our lab space that, again, as I mentioned previously, students learn how to interact with all the different bits and pieces of many of the utility scale many of the utility scale pieces of equipment you'll come across in the field. We'll jump ahead to the next slide. So there are myriad career directions that a renewable energies technician can take. And as I mentioned, one of the most common things I hear from students as they approach graduation is, I didn't even know that career opportunity existed. And that's because there are just so many different directions that a renewables grad can go in. So I maintain a number of different lists. One of those lists I give my students access to is the Canada's Clean Tech Directory, where there's over 700 companies that operate in somewhere within the renewable and green tech field. And just a couple of those different directions primarily would be solar, wind, and geothermal. And so if we just particularly to look at solar, so there's more to solar than just installing solar panels on rooftops. There's a design aspect, there's a sales aspect, there's an installation, there's maintenance and troubleshooting. There's a number of different career opportunities that would suit the graduate who doesn't want to go up on a rooftop. Same with wind. Working in the wind field does not necessarily mean that you will find yourself climbing wind turbines. There's site assessment and construction, as well as maintenance, as well as surveying wind farms that have been in operation for a number of years to determine blade tip erosion, and all of that is now the industry has really pivoted in the last few years, in that now companies that operate in the blade maintenance, for instance, looking at blade tip erosion, used to be you would have to climb a wind turbine tower, and then you would rappel down the blades, and you would do physical inspection of blade tip erosion and that sort of thing. Well, now we do that from the ground using drones and 4K video. So you can become a wind turbine technician. You can work in the wind industry and never climb over 4 feet in the air by simply using a 4K drone and that sort of thing. So there's a number of different career opportunities, and it's an exciting field to be getting into. And all you have to do is open your news outlet of choice, and you'll find every day there's another news article that's got something to do with some emergent green technology or cost reduction, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a fun field to be in. We'll move ahead. And to mirror again what Jan mentioned, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And this is just a small snapshot of some of the career opportunities that renewable energies technicians can involve themselves in. So to mention 3 of them, we'll move to the next slide, and I'll just give you a quick snapshot of 3 graduates from the program from a number of different years. So the first I'll mention is Trevor, and Trevor graduated back in 2013. Trevor was hired by a local construction company here in Niagara and put on the project as project manager for the oversight and construction of 5 wind turbines in the Niagara region here. Trevor's moved on to work with Siemens Gamesa, which is a very, very large internationally operating company. He's a lead technician, a site manager, district project engineer, and has been heavily involved in the wind industry in particular for every day since graduation. Santiago graduated in 2015. He works with a company called Horizon Energy, and he's involved in solar PV sales and distributing. So I mentioned that graduate that wants to work in the green field, that wants to work in the solar field, that doesn't want to climb on rooftops. And Santiago is a perfect example of that. He's been gainfully employed and for again, every minute since he's graduated in the solar field, and yet not spend a moment on rooftops because of the career direction. Okay, Alden works with a company called Enercon, which is another very large wind turbine manufacturer, as a wind turbine technician. So Alden does go up tower. Alden does perform routine maintenance, repairs, et cetera, on utility scale wind turbines. And I keep in touch with a number of grads from the program. And one of my favorite Facebook posts to see is that panoramic shot standing on top of a utility scale wind turbine, where you see this beautiful landscape, you see other wind turbines, and the caption is almost always, "I love my office view this morning." And the reality is, yeah, if you like to be outside, if you like to be physically active, if you like to be fit, and you like to sort of not exist in a cubicle, becoming a wind turbine technician very well may be for you, because indeed, you don't get a better office view than 120 meters up in the air. And a 360-degree panoramic view of the scenery. So it's a really exciting field to be getting into. And we'll just jump ahead here. So I mentioned, I should say, I will mention that my contact info is there, and I'll pass it back over to the other three. Please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have any questions about any of the programs here, our emails are available. We're happy to get back to you at any time. Of course, we have the Q&A as well. And if you're just curious, hey, what is this particular job opportunity? What could I get into in the wind field? What could I get into in the solar field? What grads are you aware of that are currently working in such and such a field? Please don't hesitate to reach out. We've all got, between the four of us sitting here, we've got a lexicon full of anecdotal stories that we can tell you from conversations with graduates and industry representatives, to sort of help you get an idea of what opportunities await you post-graduation. So thank you very much for your time. Allison, I'll pass it back to you.
You know what? We tell our term one students right off the bat, do not, even when they come to orientation, even when they come to open house, or when they get, do not see, electrical, okay, wires, there's a roll of wire over my shoulder and I'm wearing a hard hat. Electronics, okay, I'm stuck on a bench. You would not believe the employment opportunities in every direction. If you're into sales, if you're into design, if you're into service, if you're into installation, customer, it's there. Every job needs to be done at every technological field. Every wind turbine out there has to be sold. Every automation system needs to be designed and installed and serviced and upgraded and all that's like, just, you can't come in with one conception. Oh, you know what? I don't want to go into this because I don't want to get, you're not doing that. We're giving you that basis. You can go into any field you want, right? We have people who are so in love with technology, but they end up getting into sales and marketing. They'll go take another diploma in sales and marketing and then get into the technology field that way, right? Or even to accounting or whatever. But it's, like I said, you can't come in with one preconceived notion about what that field is. There are so many jobs out there, and including these great teaching jobs we have.
And I think to add to that, if you do come in with a preconceived notion, it'll probably change, right? Because you're going to be exposed to so many things out there that you don't know what you don't know, right? And so if you do have an idea of what you think you're going to leave with, might be completely different by the time you're done when you start working with these folks here.
You know, Allie, we all have career stories that are as zigzaggy as they get, right? They're not straight lines. So that's what they have. And most of our students, when you tell them to think back about their parents, they go, oh yeah, my mom did this, my dad did this. So it's everywhere for them.
I was just going to add, one of the advantages of taking a diploma in college is the hands-on labs. it's almost 50% of your time is lab work and 50% is theory work. So you're very busy with your hands, building things, playing with things, learning how things work. So the college experience is extremely valuable when it comes to hands-on practical skill sets.
And does that not only give our students a confidence to go out knowing that they can do the work, but also the employers that are hiring our grads? We have a reputation for, creating these work-ready, innovative graduates. So, it's a confidence, it's a win-win-win all around, because, having that hands-on practical experience, that what kind of job you're going to do in the future, and so do the employers. So great point, Steph. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, one of the things we stress a lot is debugging, how to find your own challenges or problems in your circuit. So solving power issues, connection issues, measuring your circuits, measuring your voltages, looking at the oscilloscope, grabbing your instrumentation tools and figuring out the puzzle by looking at what the signals are. And that's the skill set that our grads get. And it's invaluable in industry because then they can troubleshoot just about anything.